Welcome back to Knowledge Gumbo Conversations. What's happening, beautiful people? Hope you're having a good day, getting and facing the hump of this week. Hump day. Uh, let's get going into what we're going to talk about today. I want to try something new. Uh, because going forward, as I revise and revamp everything, instead of pulling from the previous week's newsletter, I want to do a preview and kind of wrap the whole week leading you into Friday's newsletter. So I want to do that and see how that flows and how that hopefully genders more conversation. So, what's happening, Gretchen? We're doing good today in the great Northwest. It has been a little chilly here in the Southeast, but let's get started. So, as a way, I want to kind of highlight what we're going into or what we're going to discuss on Friday's newsletter. And for this week, the woman we're going to be highlighting is Pauli Murray. And she was an exceptional lawyer, but she also became the first Black female Episcopal priest, talking about a dichotomy of career choices. Because when you look at her career, she developed legal strategies that moved forward the advancement for women of color and women as a gender, because she coined the phrase Jane Crow, talking about the cross section for Black women of being discriminated against both for being Black and for being female. And she created an incredible path for other legal minds to follow. And one of what we consider a great legal mind, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, was an adopter and follower of Murray's legal frameworks. And she also wrote several papers with Murray. Want to look at it from a standpoint too of Murray was also the first Black person to earn a JSD, a Doctor of the Science of Law, from Yale Law School. So if you want to find out and get the whole 411 about Pauli Murray, check out Knowledge Gumbo newsletter. Comes out every Friday. If you're not subscribed, you can scan the QR code right there and make sure that you get signed up before it comes out Friday. So let's hit the next section, of course, which is becoming a community favorite. And I'm still working on better transitions, but probably roll all that out come January, unless I come up with something really awesome before then. But here is Address It or Let It Slide. This week on Address It or Let It Slide, a friend repeatedly shows up late every time you meet. Do you address it or do you let it slide? For me, I have to address it because I feel like being late is disrespectful. You're telling the other person that you don't respect their time, that you don't respect the fact that they're taking time out to spend with you, whether it's a meeting, whether it's just coffee or dinner. Time is something that no one can get back. It cannot be recouped. And when you waste it, it's very disrespectful. And that thought process for me has grown over the years as when I first started working at Saturn, I had a manager who would have these weekly meetings at 8 o'clock in the morning. And at 8 o'clock on the dot, he would lock the door. So if you were late, you couldn't get in the meeting. Yet you were responsible for everything that he rolled out in that meeting. And his thing was he didn't like people strolling in late because one, he thought it was disrespectful. Two, he didn't like repeating himself because people who come in late miss information, ask the question, and then he would have to go back over it again. So he locked the door. You had to learn to be on time or you totally missed everything. And also, a couple of the pastors that I grew up having in my life both had the philosophy of being early is on time and on time is late. And there's nothing after that. um, One pastor, he would start service. It didn't matter if it was 2,000 people in the sanctuary or two people. If service started at 10, he wanted praise and worship to start at 10. And it didn't matter if it was summer and people weren't coming to church like they're supposed to, or if it was winter and it had been a storm. Hey, the parking lot and everything to the church was cleared off. You needed to get to church on time. So I've kind of been surrounded and raised in that mindset that you have to be on time. It's just very disrespectful. And if it's someone who continues to show up late, then I just don't deal with that person. And I'll let them know why I don't deal with them anymore. I'm not going to hide it. I'm not going to avoid that person and make myself uncomfortable or make myself out a liar. I'm just going to tell them, I don't trust you to show up on time. My life is only Lord knows how long. And I'm not going to waste that time that I could be doing something productive, waiting for you to grace me with your presence. Just not going to happen. So comment below and let me know. If a friend repeatedly shows up late every time you meet, do you address it or do you let it slide? Are you one of those really chilled, laid back people like it'll happen when it happens? I've mellowed a little bit, but not that much. So that could never be me. So let me know in the comment section. Like I said, if a friend repeatedly shows up late every time you meet, do you address it or do you let it slide? As we transition into our final section of tonight's conversation, what else don't I know? And that's my little weekly section where I either fall down a rabbit hole or something sparks a thought or a question in my head, and I have to find out what the answer is. So this week I was thinking about listening to a bunch of old hymns and spirituals and thinking about church when the deacons used to have devotionals before Sunday service starts, but they didn't allow any music. You sang and you clapped and you stomped, but there was no music. And I was wondering, where did that history come from? Because now when you go to church, you got the full band, you got the soundboard, you got the strobe lights and everything like that. But when you break it down to the basics, it started with just clapping, stomping, and maybe a tambourine. So when I looked into this history, it came out that in slavery, a lot of the what's the right word? A lot of the plantation owners forbade slaves from using drums. It depended on what area in the South you were in, but a lot of them forbade the use of drums. And so in order to replace that, many started singing and using clapping sounds and stomping sounds to create a beat. And this is the foundation to where now today we get things like stepping in black sororities and fraternities. This is also where we get it in a lot of a cappella music began from that as a springboard for a cappella music. Uh, and so that's kind of where it all came from. And I was like really interested in that because it was just like, wow, okay. But we were forbidden to use drums mainly because they didn't, once they realized that a lot of the people use drums to communicate from plantation to plantation because drums could signal, especially those on the Underground Railroad, whether it was safe for people to come and pass through. And so they switched from those drums to you had certain hymns would let people know if it was safe or if they needed to move on, just as the same way they used quilts hanging off a line or over a fence to notify people if it was safe to continue or if they needed to lay low or if they needed to change their journey on the Underground Railroad. So it all became, this melting pot of things that led to people being free, or if they weren't physically free, they were spiritually free because they still controlled the music and they used it as a sound, a heartbeat to keep people unified. Yeah, I kind of like that. Really. We do need more tambourines in our life. There's nothing like a good old black church mother who could really ring it and beat it so hard you was like thinking it was gonna break. I kind of miss those. Uh, I like going to the smaller churches sometimes here in the South because they still have that. They have those traditions. They've still held on to them, and it makes a big, big difference. So, as we wrap up this week's version of Knowledge Gumbo Conversations, as I said, if you want to find out more about Pauli Murray, check out the newsletter that's coming out this Friday. Feel free to scan the QR code if you haven't already to sign up to receive it every Friday. Um, if you're not so inclined, here's the link in the comment section so that you can do this and show up and join our family because we really, really want to grow this community, really want to get to the point where we're having conversations that have been neglected or overlooked. Uh, really want to, Even though my main audience is Black women of Gen X and older, I really wanted to encourage all women to learn this history, because whether we like it or not, we are all tied together by gender. And if we don't realize that, we're going to continue to lose. So thanks for hanging out with me tonight. Before you go, please hit the like button. Share this with someone who you feel like it would impact, or share a good word. Like I said, head over to Knowledge Gumbo newsletter to get a weekly dose of this knowledge, because we share what's really cooking behind the scenes. And we will definitely see you next week.
Beat drops heavy, heartbeat steady, ready.
Check the mirror, see a queen in the reflection, no doubt, full steam.